Alright, let's dive into something truly mysterious within the Warhammer 40k universe, the Martian Crypt-Suns. These aren't your run-of-the-mill celestial bodies or just another forgotten relic of the ancient past. No, these forged stars might represent something far more elusive and dangerous, possibly a key to some of the oldest and darkest secrets of the Imperium. Mars, the red planet, is no stranger to hidden knowledge. In fact, it's the very heart of the Adeptus Mechanicus, a place where the line between the sacred and the forbidden blurs in the pursuit of divine technology. But beneath its surface, buried deep within the forgotten archives of the Mechanicum, could lie something far more extraordinary. Stars that were once part of the Martian forges, stars that might never have truly gone cold. Are these ancient stars a forgotten power source or something far more ominous? Could they hold the answers to questions the Mechanicum has been too terrified to ask? These Martian Crypt-Suns might just be the perfect embodiment of Mars itself, a world that holds a terrifying and fascinating secret, one that could change everything we know about the universe. As we unravel the possibility of their existence, we begin to understand not just Mars, but the very soul of the Mechanicum, and perhaps the entire Imperium. What exactly are the Martian Crypt-Suns, and why should we care? Let's explore. So let's talk about forged stars. You might think they're just another term, a fancy name for a star, but no. There's a lot more to it when you start peeling back the layers in the grimdark world of Warhammer 40k. Forged stars are something far more significant, and their connection to the Mechanicum is as mysterious as it is ancient. At their core, forged stars are these massive artificial stellar bodies created by the ancient tech priests of the Dark Age of technology. Now, imagine this. A star that's not just some cosmic ball of gas burning away in the vacuum of space. These stars are purpose-built by the ancient human civilization to serve the most industrial, mechanized needs you could imagine. They were meant to power gigantic machines, super-advanced forges, and to fuel the creation of some of the greatest tech humanity had ever seen. It's easy to imagine a forged star as this immense glowing sphere, not like any star you've ever known. Its heat, its energy, not used for sustaining life, but for manufacturing the most complex and deadly machinery ever created. It's like a factory in space, a power plant the size of a star itself, capable of providing the energy required to build the Titans, the massive war machines that would come to define humanity's strength in the millennia to come. The Mechanicum, the great tech priesthood of the Adeptus Mechanicus, would have relied on these forged stars to fuel their mighty forges, which in turn would have fueled the war engines of humanity during the golden age of the Imperium. Now, forged stars are no mere legend. They're real, they've existed, and many believe that they're still out there, hidden in the farthest corners of the galaxy. But what makes them so fascinating and terrifying is that they represent a lost age of technology, an age where humanity's potential seemed limitless. Think about it. In the dark age of technology, humanity could create stars, and not just create them, but control them, use them, and harness them for the greatest purpose known to mankind, the forging of weapons and machines of unimaginable power. But here's the thing. Forged stars don't just represent some bygone age of glory. They're dangerous. The creation of stars themselves, no matter how artificial, comes with risks, massive world-ending risks. Some theories say that the very reason the Dark Age of technology fell was because of over-reliance on these kinds of technologies. Some forged stars, in their attempt to power the creation of the greatest weapons, may have become unstable. Imagine the raw energy coursing through them, the sheer force of it. They could have become unstable reactors, explosions waiting to happen. The fallout from that could have led to the Age of Strife, where humanity almost destroyed itself in the wake of its own hubris. And it's here that the connection to the Martian Crypt-Suns becomes more than just a theory. It could be the key to understanding the secrets that Mars hides. If some of these ancient forged stars survived, perhaps they were hidden away on Mars itself, preserved by the Mechanicum, awaiting the day they could be reactivated. Could the Mechanicum have been guarding them all this time, knowing the potential for destruction they hold, but also knowing the kind of power that could be unlocked if they were used again? Some fans speculate that the Martian Crypt-Suns might be the last remnants of those stars, hiding in plain sight on the surface of Mars, shielded from the galaxy's prying eyes. Others think these forged stars weren't just a tool, they were a symbol, an embodiment of humanity's pursuit of perfection through technology. If these stars are still out there, would they serve as a reminder of that lost potential, a warning of what could happen if such power is wielded again? And who would want to wield them? The Adeptus Mechanicus, of course, would want nothing more than to harness such a weapon, to bring back the power of a lost age and use it to ensure the Imperium's survival. But here's the kicker. While the Mechanicum has long claimed to have mastered the stars of the past, the truth is much murkier. It's said that certain factions within the Mechanicum have been obsessed with finding and reactivating these ancient stars, believing that doing so would elevate them to godlike status. They see the power of the forged stars as a means to further their control over the Imperium, and it's no secret that certain tech priests might even consider their use to be part of their religious devotion to the Omnissiah. Imagine what kind of wars, what kind of political machinations could come from such an obsession. Could these forged stars still have an effect on the galaxy, even if they've been dormant for millennia? It's a chilling thought, but one that fits right into the grim-dark nature of Warhammer 40K. The question isn't just about whether these stars still exist. It's about what happens when the Imperium's most powerful faction starts digging too deep into secrets it was never meant to uncover. It's easy to see how such a discovery could plunge the galaxy into chaos, as different factions vie for control over the power contained within these ancient forbidden stars. Would they destroy the Imperium, or could they save it? The truth is, forged stars are not just a relic of the past. They're a key to understanding the Mechanicum, the fall of humanity, and perhaps even the future of the galaxy itself. If these stars still burn, what will happen when they're finally unleashed? It's a terrifying thought, and one that has fans on the edge of their seats, eagerly awaiting what the Mechanicum might discover next. The forged stars hold the potential to shift the balance of power in the galaxy, and perhaps that's exactly what makes them so dangerous. Mars, this barren red world that looms so large in the lore of Warhammer 40K. To the untrained eye, it's just another planet, a cold, desolate rock hanging in the sky. But to those who know its secrets, Mars is a treasure trove of knowledge, history, and power that could change the entire course of the galaxy. It is more than just the home of the Adeptus Mechanicus. It is the birthplace of mankind's greatest achievements and its darkest, most dangerous failures. Let's rewind for a moment to a time when Mars wasn't the desolate machine world we know today. Before it was the heart of the Adeptus Mechanicus, before it became the Imperium's center for all things technological and arcane, Mars was the shining jewel of human civilization during the dark age of technology. It was a hub of innovation, home to the most advanced technologies mankind had ever created. The people of Mars weren't just surviving, they were thriving. The planet was a beacon of progress, a place where the limits of technology and science were continually pushed and expanded. But that golden age didn't last. As with all things in the Warhammer 40K universe, the fall was inevitable. Mars, despite its technological marvels, was not immune to the same flaws that plagued humanity during the Dark Age. As Mars grew more advanced, it grew more isolated. The tech priests and engineers became obsessed with their machines, with perfection, and with the worship of the Omnissiah. But in their pursuit of the divine through technology, they neglected the very thing that made humanity great, its connection to each other. It was during this time that the first true signs of the fall began to show. Mars became home to the first forged worlds, planets entirely dedicated to the creation of war machines, weapons, and the construction of titans, those gargantuan war engines that would become symbols of power in the galaxy. The creation of these forged worlds led to the creation of the first artificial stars, massive energy generators that powered these forges. It was a time of unparalleled innovation, but also of dangerous experimentation. Now you might be wondering, what does this have to do with the Martian Crypt-Suns? Well, here's where it gets interesting. Some fans believe that the forged stars weren't just energy sources, they were artifacts, relics from a bygone era, perhaps even remnants of something older and more mysterious than the Mechanicum's vast machines. In their relentless drive to push the boundaries of technology, the tech priests may have unlocked something they weren't meant to, something tied to the very fabric of the galaxy itself. Some speculate that the Martian Crypt-Suns were once part of a grander cosmic scheme that even the Emperor of Mankind didn't fully understand, a secret too dangerous to ever come to light. The Mechanicum, over time, came to see Mars as sacred ground, the birthplace of the Omnissiah's divine will. And as the Great Crusade unfolded, with the Emperor of Mankind's legions marching across the galaxy, Mars remained a steadfast bastion of technological worship. But even as the Imperium expanded and the Emperor sought to unite humanity, Mars remained focused on its own endeavors, its own obsession with knowledge and power. The Adeptus Mechanicus built the Imperium's greatest weapons, but in doing so, they became increasingly distant from the rest of humanity. The planet itself became a machine, a cold, lifeless entity, devoid of the human soul that once made it great. What's even more fascinating, though, is how Mars played a pivotal role in the heresy. As the Horus heresy began to tear apart the fabric of the Imperium, Mars was no safe haven. The very heart of humanity's technology was divided. The Mechanicum, torn between loyalty to the Emperor and the allure of chaos, faced its own internal strife. Many of the Mechanicum's leaders turned to the ruinous powers, tempted by the promise of even greater power and knowledge. But in the end, Mars remained loyal to the Imperium, though at great cost. The schism between the Mechanicum's loyalists and traitors led to the creation of new factions within the Adeptus Mechanicus, and even today, Mars remains a place of political intrigue, conspiracy, and deep-seated rivalry. To this day, the secrets of Mars remain largely hidden. Even the Imperium, for all its vastness, doesn't fully understand the extent of the knowledge that lies within the depths of Mars. Some believe that the Martian Crypt-Suns are tied to these secrets, perhaps even to the ancient forges that once powered the Dark Age's greatest weapons. The truth is that Mars is a place of contradictions. It is both the birthplace of humanity's greatest triumphs and the site of its most catastrophic failures. The tech priests, in their obsessive pursuit of the Omnissiah's will, have kept the greatest of Mars's secrets buried deep within its red dust. And perhaps that's the most terrifying thing of all, the fact that the people who control Mars, the Adeptus Mechanicus, have access to some of the oldest and most dangerous knowledge in the galaxy. What they choose to do with that knowledge could very well shape the future of the Imperium and the galaxy itself. The Martian Crypt-Suns, if they exist, are just one part of that vast, mysterious puzzle. What other secrets are hidden beneath Mars's surface, waiting to be uncovered? What other dangers lurk in the shadows, waiting to be unleashed? Only time will tell. But one thing is for certain. Mars is far from a forgotten relic of the past. It is a sleeping giant, and its secrets could shake the very foundations of the Imperium. The Adeptus Mechanicus, where do you even start? To some, they're the devoted priests of technology, the unwavering guardians of humanity's greatest weaponry and knowledge. But scratch the surface, and you'll quickly realize there's far more lurking beneath the polished, chrome-plated exterior. There's a darkness within the Mechanicum, a secret history steeped in forbidden knowledge, so deep and dangerous that it could shatter the very foundation of the Imperium. To understand the forbidden knowledge of the Adeptus Mechanicus, we need to step back into the past. When the Emperor forged the Imperium, he built a vast empire where technology was revered, but it was under strict control. For most of humanity, technology was a tool, a means to survive, to protect, and to conquer. But for the Mechanicum, technology was something far more than that. It was sacred. The machine spirit was worshipped, the divine essence of every cog and gear, every circuit and wire. This idea that machines had a soul was a belief that stretched back to the Dark Age of technology, when humanity's brightest minds had built wonders beyond comprehension. But the Emperor, ever the pragmatist, had no patience for such worship. To him, machines were tools, not gods. And yet, the Mechanicum refused to abandon this faith. It wasn't just a matter of religion. The tech priests knew that in their search for knowledge, they had unearthed dangerous secrets, secrets that could unravel the very fabric of reality itself. What the Mechanicum learned from the Dark Age, from the ancient forged stars and the depths of Mars, was not just the art of forging weapons and machines. No, they found something far darker, something far more powerful: the ability to manipulate the very laws of the universe itself. One of the most controversial and most forbidden aspects of the Mechanicum's knowledge is their connection to the ancient technologies of the Dark Age of technology. During that era, humanity had stumbled upon a force known as the warp, the raw power that exists beyond the material universe, a place where the very fabric of reality is bent and twisted by the emotions and desires of living beings. The Mechanicum's early experiments with the warp were horrific. There are stories, dark whispers mostly, passed around by those brave enough to speak of them, that the tech priests made pacts with entities from the warp, beings of unimaginable power that existed on the edge of the material world. Some even speculate that the dark forces of chaos had a hand in shaping the Mechanicum's deepest secrets, offering knowledge in exchange for sacrifices, souls perhaps, or even entire worlds. What's even more chilling is the idea that the Mechanicum might have known more about the warp than anyone else. The Emperor's hatred of the Chaos Gods, his rejection of the warp, was rooted in his belief that humanity should never fall under the sway of those dark powers. Yet, the Mechanicum didn't just dabble with the warp, they sought to master it. They created machines capable of tapping into warp energy, tools that could defy the natural laws of the universe. The first Titans, the massive walking war machines, were one such creation, powered by the most arcane and forbidden technology. But the Mechanicum's search for knowledge didn't stop there. No, as their power grew, so did their thirst for more. Some of the deepest secrets of the Mechanicum were hidden away in the labyrinthine vaults of Mars, guarded by the most loyal and fanatical of the tech priests. It's said that these vaults hold the true nature of the Dark Age's technology, the very devices that could control entire star systems, manipulate the fabric of time, or even shatter the laws of reality itself. The cryptic whispers from the Mechanicum's darkest corners suggest that some of this knowledge still remains locked away on Mars, untouched by even the Emperor's closest advisors. And let's not forget the mysterious artifacts the Mechanicum has unearthed over the millennia. Fans of the lore have speculated that many of these objects were not created by humanity, but were left behind by other, far older civilizations. Some believe the so-called Dark Mechanicum, the heretical faction that followed Horus during the heresy, came into contact with these artifacts and used them to fuel their rebellion. These artifacts, artificial stars, warp-driven engines, strange relics that defy understanding, might still be in the possession of the Mechanicum, kept under lock and key. The Martian Crypt-Suns, if they exist, could be one such artifact, an ancient power source left behind by a forgotten race, hidden away for fear of what might happen if the Imperium, or the Mechanicum, ever learned how to use it. The truth is that the Adeptus Mechanicus has always operated in the shadows. They have always been more than just a military force or a faction of scientists. They are keepers of secrets, guardians of knowledge that could change the course of history. Some say the Mechanicum has always known that the Emperor's vision for humanity was flawed, that he could never see the true potential of what they were building. And so, they kept their forbidden knowledge close, hidden in the dark corners of their forges, waiting for the day when they could reveal it to the world. Perhaps, they reasoned, the Emperor was too narrow-minded to understand. Or perhaps, they feared, the Emperor's vision was too small to contain the power they had unlocked. But the most terrifying part of all of this is that we don't know what the Mechanicum has truly discovered. We don't know what secrets they're keeping. What we do know is that their pursuit of knowledge, unchecked and unchallenged, could lead to the unraveling of the entire galaxy. The Martian Crypt-Suns, the hidden relics of the Dark Age, the warp-driven technologies, they are all part of a puzzle that the Mechanicum is desperately trying to solve. And in their obsession with finding the answers, they are willing to do anything. They are willing to sacrifice anything, even if that means unleashing forces that humanity was never meant to control. Some fans have speculated that the Mechanicum's pursuit of forbidden knowledge is driven by a desire to transcend humanity, to become something more than flesh and blood, something divine. But what happens when you push the boundaries of technology too far? What happens when you seek power without understanding the consequences? The Mechanicum is playing with fire, and sooner or later, it's going to burn them. When we start talking about the Martian forged stars and their potential connection to the Dark Age of technology, it's impossible to avoid the heavy weight of history hanging over it all. We're dealing with something that is as shrouded in mystery as it is steeped in the dark, destructive brilliance of humanity's greatest, most catastrophic epoch. The Dark Age of technology was a time when mankind reached the peak of its power, only to come crashing down into the ruins of 1,000 forgotten empires. And it's here, in this period of boundless potential and blind ambition, that the forged stars might find their true purpose. The forged stars, if they exist, are not just glowing balls of energy drifting in space. They're far more than that. These stars were likely part of an ancient system designed to power the vast, planet-shaking forges of the Dark Age. Imagine the kind of technology humanity must have possessed to create such wonders. The capacity to craft a star, a sun that burned with purpose, not just heat and light, but to fuel the largest war machines ever conceived, says everything you need to know about the potential of that time. And that's what makes the Martian connection so intriguing. Mars, as the cradle of humanity's greatest technological worship and creation, is likely the place where these stars were first harnessed or even created. Some say that the Mechanicum, in its earliest form, might have discovered the secrets to forging these stars from the remnants of this forgotten age, tapping into the vast energies that were once available to the human race. But here's where things get interesting. The Mechanicum's obsession with these stars didn't come from nowhere. There are theories, some whispered among the tech priests themselves, that these stars were more than just power sources. They were part of a much larger and far more dangerous puzzle. In the darkest corners of the Mechanicum's vaults, rumors circulate of ancient schematics, blueprints for technologies that not only powered forges, but perhaps even bridged the gap between the material and immaterium. These stars might have been part of an experiment, an early attempt to tap into the warp directly, harnessing its chaotic energy to fuel mankind's greatest creations. But what if the forged stars were actually the result of a far older and more forbidden era? What if they were never meant to be used at all, that they were somehow twisted by the tech priests' own desires for power? This brings us to the heart of the matter. The Dark Age of technology wasn't just about constructing massive war engines or creating stellar forges. It was about seeking a kind of divine perfection, the ultimate union of technology and humanity. In their quest for this perfection, mankind sought out every possible avenue of knowledge, including those that could bend reality itself. The forged stars might have been created to act as a focal point for this forbidden knowledge, a means to channel the energies of the warp or to manipulate the very fabric of the universe. Some believe that these stars were the linchpin in the darkest of human endeavors, experiments so dangerous that they were buried deep within the forbidden archives of Mars, locked away to prevent the collapse of civilization. But as with all things in the Warhammer 40K universe, these technologies came at a steep price. The Dark Age of technology was marked by its rapid growth and equally rapid downfall. The unchecked pursuit of power led to the creation of weapons capable of wiping out entire worlds, of technologies that could tear apart the very fabric of space and time. Many speculate that the creation of the forged stars, if they truly existed, might have been a key player in the downfall of the Dark Age. Perhaps they were too volatile, too powerful to remain under control. It's easy to imagine that one of these forged stars could have been the cause of one of the many cataclysms that destroyed the great human civilizations of the time, a deadly reminder of humanity's hubris. And here's where the Martian connection becomes truly chilling. If these forged stars are indeed tied to the dark, forbidden technologies of the Dark Age, then Mars may hold within its vaults some of the most destructive and unstable forces humanity has ever known. The Mechanicum, in its tireless pursuit of knowledge, might have uncovered fragments of these ancient technologies and attempted to reawaken them. But even the greatest minds of the Mechanicum have limits. There's only so much they can uncover without inadvertently unleashing the horrors of the past once again. In the deepest, darkest corners of Mars, there are those who claim that the Mechanicum has always known more than it lets on. They've hidden the truth about the forged stars, and more importantly, the role they played in the Dark Age of technology. Some say that the tech priests fear what might happen if the Imperium, or anyone, were to discover just how close Mars is to uncovering a power greater than anything the galaxy has ever known. Could the forged stars be a link to that lost era, a key to unlocking a future of unimaginable power? Or are they simply a reminder of humanity's greatest failure, a dangerous echo of a time when mankind reached too far? The Martian forged stars, whether real or simply the stuff of legend, represent the darkest chapter in humanity's history. They're a symbol of both the heights of our potential and the depths of our mistakes. The question, as always, is, will humanity learn from its past, or will it continue to dig deeper into the forbidden, chasing after the very power that led to its downfall in the first place? If these forged stars are truly connected to the Dark Age, then the consequences of their discovery could be catastrophic. But at the same time, they might hold the answers to questions humanity has yet to ask, answers that could reshape the future of the Imperium for better or worse. Only time will tell whether the Mechanicum will awaken this forgotten power, or whether it will remain buried beneath the sands of time, waiting for the day when it is needed most. When it comes to the Martian forged stars, there's no shortage of speculation among fans about whether some of them might still be active, even after all these millennia. It's one of those tantalizing mysteries that has yet to be fully explored in the Warhammer 40k lore, and yet, it seems like the more we dig, the more potential we see for these ancient stars to come back into the picture. After all, the universe of Warhammer 40k thrives on hidden secrets, on forces that refuse to die, no matter how much time passes. Could some of these forged stars still be burning in the depths of space, just waiting to be discovered, or worse, waiting to be awakened? One of the most popular theories among fans is that certain forged stars might still be active, though perhaps in a dormant state, hidden away by the Adeptus Mechanicus, or even by the powers of chaos. The Mechanicum, after all, has been obsessed with the pursuit of forbidden knowledge for centuries, and it's easy to imagine that they might have kept some of these stars alive, either as a safeguard against the collapse of the Imperium, or as a hidden weapon of unimaginable power. The idea that these stars could still be in operation, quietly fueling the forges of Mars, or perhaps even generating power for secretive projects, is a tantalizing thought. What could the Mechanicum be using them for? Could they be working on the creation of a new generation of Titans, or perhaps something far more dangerous, something capable of changing the course of the galaxy? Some fans take it even further, suggesting that these forged stars are not just sources of power, but are also connected to the warp itself. Theories abound about the idea that these stars could be operating as some sort of warp conduit, channeling the energy of the Immaterium to fuel the creation of not just machines, but entire worlds of industry. The idea that the forged stars might still be pulsing with the raw energy of the warp, waiting for the right moment to be harnessed by the Mechanicum, is an exciting one. If they are indeed tied to the warp, then it raises the question, what would happen if the Mechanicum were to fully unlock their potential? Could they become vessels of unimaginable power, capable of tearing through the fabric of reality itself? But let's not forget the darker side of the forged stars. Some fans speculate that the reason these stars were abandoned or hidden is because they are simply too dangerous to be allowed to continue burning. In the lore of Warhammer 40K, we know that the Dark Age of technology came to a horrific end due to mankind's reckless pursuit of power, and many believe that the Forged Stars might be the physical manifestation of this danger. There are whispers that some Forged Stars were never meant to be activated, that their purpose was not to power forges or machines, but to serve as vessels for something far darker. Could these stars be holding something at bay? Something so dangerous that it requires an immense amount of energy to keep it contained? Perhaps the Mechanicum, aware of the ancient horrors hidden within these stars, has kept them dormant, fearing what might happen if they were ever to flare back to life. The idea that some of these stars could still be active raises all kinds of exciting possibilities. Could there be a select group of tech priests or rogue factions within the Mechanicum who are actively searching for these stars, seeking to unlock their power for their own ends? It's easy to imagine a faction of the Mechanicum, driven by the desire for ultimate power, who might find one of these stars and attempt to harness it. Such an event could lead to a massive conflict, as rival factions within the Adeptus Mechanicus would inevitably seek to control the star, with the future of the Imperium hanging in the balance. Then there's the more cosmic theory. What if some of these forged stars are not just bound to Mars, but are scattered throughout the galaxy, hidden among the stars themselves, waiting for the right time to be rediscovered? Could there be entire systems where these stars lie dormant, their potential untapped, their purpose unknown? It's an intriguing idea, especially when you consider how much of the galaxy remains unexplored. These stars could be part of some grander scheme, something that the Mechanicum has been desperately trying to uncover for centuries. And what about the connection to the Chaos Gods? Many fans believe that some of the Forged Stars might have been corrupted by the forces of chaos during the heresy. After all, the Mechanicum wasn't always loyal to the Emperor. There were tech priests who turned to the dark side, seeking forbidden knowledge. And it's possible that some of the stars they created were infected by the warp. Could these stars now be serving as a conduit for chaos, allowing the dark powers to seep into the material world? If so, then they might be far more dangerous than anyone can imagine. Could they be manipulating the flow of power within the Imperium, subtly altering the course of events to serve the will of the ruinous powers? Ultimately, the question of whether any forged stars remain active is one that's bound to remain shrouded in mystery, at least for now. The tantalizing theories, the possibilities, the dangers, they're all part of what makes the lore of Warhammer 40K so rich and compelling. There's so much we don't know, so much left to be uncovered. What if one day a rogue tech priest discovers the last active forged star hidden in some forgotten corner of the galaxy, and awakens its dormant power? What would happen then? Would the Imperium fall into chaos, or would it usher in a new age of technological supremacy? One thing's for sure, the mystery of the Forged Stars isn't going away anytime soon. Fans will continue to speculate, theorize, and dream of the day when these ancient relics of the Dark Age of technology are finally revealed. Whether they're dormant, hidden, or still burning brightly, they are a reminder of humanity's greatest achievement and its greatest failure. And the question remains, what will we do when we find them? It's wild to even imagine that something as immense and complex as a forged star, a human-made star, possibly the size of actual suns, could still be burning somewhere in the galaxy. You'd think after tens of thousands of years, during the rise and fall of countless empires, amidst wars that consumed entire sectors and cataclysms that reshaped the stars themselves, these things would have either gone out or been destroyed outright. And yet, the possibility that some of these Martian forged stars could have survived is one of the most captivating pieces of hidden lore in the entire setting. Let's start with the idea of intentional concealment. We know the Adeptus Mechanicus is obsessed with secrecy, especially when it comes to technology they deem too dangerous or too sacred for the wider Imperium to know about. The phrase, "knowledge is power," might as well be etched into their metallic bones. If any faction had the motive and the means to keep a forged star operational in absolute secrecy, it would be them. Some fans speculate that during the late stages of the Dark Age of technology, when it was becoming clear that the collapse of civilization was inevitable, the tech priests of Mars may have shut down or hidden key-forged stars on purpose, sealed them beneath planetary crusts, disguised them as natural stellar bodies, or even cast them into artificial voids where their energy signatures couldn't be traced. Another theory is that these forged stars were built to endure. Unlike natural stars that have lifespans governed by fusion reactions and stellar cycles, forged stars were engineered. And when the Mechanicum builds something, especially something of such sacred significance, it's designed to last. They don't make things to decay over time. If these were true stars forged by design, they may have included internal stasis fields, self-repairing plasma cores, and fail-safe protocols that allowed them to go dormant instead of dying. Just think about that. Sleeping suns, tucked away in uncharted systems, waiting for the right input code, the right ritual, or the right high-ranking magos to awaken them. There's also the possibility of partial survival, forged stars that didn't remain fully operational, but whose remnants continue to pulse with life in some form. This is a fan theory I really love. Maybe they're not burning with the full intensity of their creation days, but their core processes are still active. Kind of like the embers of a dying fire, glowing just faintly enough to suggest they could be reignited under the right conditions. What if that's exactly what the Mechanicum is looking for? Not new stars, but relics to rekindle, using recovered STC fragments, alien tech, or even warp energy if they're desperate enough. And then there's the warp. Everything always comes back to the warp eventually. Some believe the forged stars aren't purely physical constructs at all, but are partially anchored in the immaterium. If that's the case, then they don't follow the normal rules of space-time. They could burn without consuming fuel, exist in multiple locations simultaneously, or even vanish from detection entirely until the warp aligns just right. Maybe some of the forged stars that went cold were simply pulled halfway into the immaterium, still active but no longer perceivable by conventional sensors. The idea that they're flickering just out of phase with our reality is both fascinating and deeply unsettling. A more speculative but persistent theory is that forged stars could have been integrated into other systems. That is, the Mechanicum might have cannibalized them, not destroyed them outright, but embedded their cores or power drives into the larger structure of Mars or other forged worlds. These relic cores could be running entire cities underground, or buried deep beneath Noctis Labyrinthus, providing energy to the oldest vaults of the Red Planet. Some fans even go so far as to say that the forged stars were never stars in the literal sense, but were instead contained systems, miniature black holes, or artificial singularities that generated near-infinite power under strict Mechanicum protocols. And let's not forget the political side of it. The Adeptus Mechanicus is not a unified body. There are schisms within schisms, philosophies that clash over the definition of divinity and function. If a forged star still exists, chances are it's under the control of a very specific, very reclusive sect. Maybe a xenocognitist sect that believes the forged stars are keys to understanding Xenos technology, or an apocalypticon forge that hoards one as the last resort for the final war, believing that activating it would be both salvation and damnation. If you've ever heard of the theory that the Crypt-Suns refer to hidden tech priest lineages rather than the stars themselves, then you might understand why some believe these forged stars are being protected by secret orders of magi who don't answer to Mars, or even the Imperium at large. The survival of any forged star would also require silence. Utter silence. The less the galaxy knows, the safer it is. And that fits perfectly with how the Adeptus Mechanicus behaves. We're talking about a group that actively destroys knowledge when it deems it heretical. They've wiped entire data vaults and planets just to keep information from falling into the wrong hands. If a forged star survived, it's because someone, probably many someones, died to make sure no one would find it. But maybe the most poetic idea is that forged stars didn't survive because someone protected them, but because no one could destroy them. Built so far beyond the understanding of even the modern Mechanicum that they've become indestructible by accident. like relics of gods in a universe that has long since stopped believing in gods who create. Just dormant miracles, outliving the very species that once lit their fire. So yeah, maybe one or two are still out there. Maybe one still slumbers beneath the Martian surface. Or maybe it hums quietly beneath the crust of some forgotten moon, its glow mistaken for geothermal activity. It could even be that the Crypt-Suns are more than just myth, and one day someone will stumble across them. Not as conquerors, not as creators, but as terrified pilgrims at the altar of something humanity was never meant to control. The very idea that one or more of the Martian forged stars could still exist, not just as ancient legends or corrupted data fragments, but as real functioning relics, casts a long and complicated shadow over Mars and the Adeptus Mechanicus. It's not just a matter of technological curiosity or historical trivia. If these stars are real, and if they're still out there in any state, dormant, sealed, buried, active, hidden, it changes everything. And I don't just mean for the Mechanicum, I mean for the Imperium as a whole. Let's start with Mars. Mars has always prided itself on being the keeper of humanity's greatest technological heritage, the literal cradle of machine worship and sacred knowledge. The cult of the Omnissiah is rooted in this belief that technology is divine, that knowledge is holy, and that uncovering and preserving ancient tech is the highest calling any sentient being can aspire to. Now imagine what it means if Mars isn't just preserving fragments of lost technology, but actually sitting on functioning forged stars, monuments from the dark age of technology that are still alive beneath the surface. It doesn't just bolster their sense of superiority, it elevates them into something nearly untouchable, even by the standards of the High Lords of Terra. That kind of power, even if unspoken or only suspected, could shift the political dynamics of the Imperium dramatically. The Adeptus Mechanicus already has enormous influence, building and maintaining the Imperium's war machines, fleets, and infrastructure. But if Mars holds something as valuable and potent as operational forged stars, the planet becomes less a loyal servant and more a sleeping giant with a nuclear heart. Think about it. Why would Mars ever fully bow to Terra when it possesses energy sources and manufacturing potential that dwarf anything else in the galaxy? That kind of leverage doesn't just make them important, it makes them dangerous. Some fans believe this is exactly why the Mechanicum keeps such a tight grip on its internal structure and operates with so much secrecy. It's not just to protect its rituals or dogma, it's to safeguard these ultimate bargaining chips. If the wider Imperium knew about them, there'd be no end to the power struggles. Assassinations, inquisitorial purges, factional wars. It could tear the entire Mechanicus apart from the inside. So instead, if these stars exist, they are guarded with absolute silence. Whispers, redacted records, false reports, sealed vaults beneath the Noctis Labyrinthus. It's all part of the game. The psychological impact on the Mechanicum's hierarchy is another aspect that's often overlooked. If forged stars are real, and some magi know of their existence, it reshapes their entire theology. Think about the tech priests who spend their entire lives trying to reconstruct even the smallest fragment of an STC, working themselves into madness over a simple pattern for efficient ammunition or structural plating. Now imagine what it would mean to learn that there are entire stars forged by man, hidden in your own backyard. It wouldn't just be overwhelming. It could be considered divine revelation, proof of the Omnissiah's boundless legacy. For some, that knowledge would be the ultimate blessing. For others, it would be too much. Heresy and madness often walk hand in hand in the Mechanicum when secrets like these come to light. And if you look outward toward the broader Imperium, the implications become even more staggering. The Imperium is always in crisis, always starved for resources, always teetering on the edge of collapse. Hive worlds choke on overpopulation, Forge worlds run at maximum capacity, and even the Astra Militarum bleeds itself dry in wars that stretch on for centuries. Now imagine the rediscovery of an active forged star, one capable of powering whole sectors, reigniting dormant forge worlds, or fueling the production of machines the Imperium hasn't seen since the Great Crusade. It would be like discovering the Holy Grail, only 10,000 times more valuable. Wars would be fought over it. Planets would burn for the right to wield it. There's a fan theory I keep circling back to, one that suggests the Mechanicum has already tried to reactivate a forged star, and that the results were catastrophic. Supposedly, a massive energy spike was registered during the Great Scouring in a system close to Mars. The records were immediately sealed. Nothing was ever officially confirmed. But some believe that the activation either failed catastrophically or succeeded in ways the Mechanicum wasn't prepared for. Entire manufactorums allegedly vanished. Not destroyed. Vanished. As if they were blinked out of existence or pulled into something they couldn't understand. If that's true, then the Mechanicum may have made a solemn vow never to attempt it again. Or maybe they've just gotten more cautious. We also have to consider what the existence of these stars means to the enemies of the Imperium. The Necrons, the Eldar, even the Tyranids. Each of these factions has a distinct reaction to energy sources and stellar phenomena. The Necrons, for instance, might see the forged stars as both a threat and an opportunity. After all, they too manipulated stellar bodies for their own purposes back during their wars with the Old Ones. If the Necrons were to find out that humanity still possesses such power, they might see it as a direct challenge, or worse, an invitation to reclaim what they believe was stolen from the galactic natural order. Ultimately, the existence of the Martian forged stars, real or not, casts a long and ominous shadow over the Mechanicum. Their very possibility creates a kind of pressure within the cult structure. Do they risk revealing what they have in the hopes of reclaiming their role as the galaxy's technological saviors? Or do they guard it even from themselves, knowing that knowledge this powerful is a double-edged blade? One thing's for sure, if the stars still burn beneath Mars or in some distant vault, the Adeptus Mechanicus is not just sitting on a technological marvel. They're sitting on a political time bomb, a theological miracle, and a strategic superweapon all rolled into one. And if the Imperium ever truly falls into darkness, these stars may be the last hope, or the final spark that sets everything ablaze. Now here's where things start to take a turn from myth and mystery into something far more conspiratorial. And I say that with full enthusiasm, because this is the kind of theory that really sinks its claws into your imagination. What if the Martian Crypt-Suns aren't just the name of ancient dormant stars, but something far more alive and calculating? What if they are a hidden faction, a splinter of the Mechanicum itself that has gone so far underground, literally and ideologically, that they've ceased to exist on the official records of Mars altogether? The very name Crypt-Suns carries weight. Crypt suggests secrecy, entombment, the burial of something sacred or forbidden. And sun evokes the idea of power, of energy, of stellar-scale influence. Combine the two, and it feels like you're not just talking about dead stars, you're talking about a cult that revolves around them, a hidden order that guards the last remnants of the Dark Age's most volatile technology, possibly even still in communion with it. Some fans believe the Martian Crypt-Suns are not just guardians of ancient knowledge, but active participants in its preservation and manipulation, a secretive techno-theological order operating in complete autonomy from the broader Adeptus Mechanicus. And when you start following the breadcrumbs, it actually makes a disturbing amount of sense. Mars is a planet defined by layers, both literal and figurative. Beneath the industrial sprawl of the surface lies the Noctis Labyrinthus, and beneath that lie relics, sealed vaults, and dead zones of knowledge that even the Fabricator General himself may not have full access to. Some believe that the Crypt-Suns dwell in these lower levels, having withdrawn from surface politics long ago, operating through ancient rites and machine languages that haven't been spoken aloud in over 10 millennia. They aren't heretics in the traditional sense, not corrupted by chaos or alien influence, but outcasts by choice. A brotherhood of tech priests who saw what the Dark Age became, what its creations wrought, and chose exile over complicity. The idea is that these Crypt-Suns might even predate the Horus heresy, possibly going into hiding during the earliest years of the Mechanicum's alliance with the Emperor. Maybe they disagreed with the merging of faith and function that defines modern Mechanicum ideology. Maybe they believed the forged stars should never be touched again, or worse, that they should be used only at the final hour when humanity faces true extinction. There's this fan theory that they're not so much a political faction as they are a failsafe, a contingency plan hardwired into the very soul of Mars. They observe, they wait, and if the Imperium ever falls too far, they activate. Not to save it, but to reset it. Of course, most of this is rumor. You won't find the Martian Crypt-Suns on any official roster, in any known Forge World hierarchy, or listed among the Legio Cybernetica archives. But that's the point. If they do exist, they wouldn't leave a data trail. There are whispers, sure, coded phrases in failed Vox transmissions, redacted passages in recovered scrap code, entire Mechanicus expeditions that have simply vanished while exploring the deep vaults. Some believe these disappearances are the work of the Crypt-Suns, silencing those who come too close to the truth. Not out of malice, but out of necessity, out of duty. There's even talk that some of the more bizarre events on Mars, strange energy readings, unexplained machine awakenings, entire manufactorums going into lockdown without explanation, could be linked to Crypt-Sun activity. As if they're still testing things, still maintaining the conditions necessary to one day reignite the stars they protect. Not to wage war, not to conquer, but to do what the rest of the galaxy is too terrified or too ignorant to even consider. Bring back the lost brilliance of the Dark Age, but on their terms. And let's not forget the aesthetics some fans assign to them, which is one of my favorite parts. They're imagined as robed figures with luminous helms, their optics glowing like miniature suns, their voices filtered through arcane distortion fields. Their tech is sleek but ancient, a perfect fusion of Dark Age elegance and Mechanicum ritualism. You can picture them moving silently through corridors lit by star core residue, carrying relics no one's seen in 20,000 years, speaking in cants that even the Fabricator General's Lex mechanics wouldn't recognize. Now, whether they truly serve the Omnisia or something older, maybe even the Machine God in its rawest, most unfiltered form, is up for debate. Some believe the Crypt-Suns don't follow the mainstream theology at all. They've gone beyond dogma and entered the realm of technological transcendence. They don't pray to machines. They become the interface. They don't repair STC fragments. They overwrite them with original code. They are a different species of tech priest entirely, evolved in the silence of secrecy and time. If that's true, then the Crypt-Suns might be the most dangerous force on Mars, not because of their numbers or their weapons, but because of what they know. Because they remember. They remember how humanity used to build. They remember what a real forged star is supposed to be, and they remember what it cost. The scariest part? If they decide to act, no one will see it coming. No fleet in high orbit, no grand announcement. Just a sudden shift, a light in the depths, the hum of machinery long thought dead, and the terrifying realization that someone has been waiting all this time with a key to power that the galaxy forgot existed. If the Martian Crypt-Suns really do exist, not just as relics or myths, but as an active, concealed order beneath the rust-red surface, then their role in the survival of Mars might be far greater than anyone in the Imperium is ready to admit. Because here's the thing. Mars isn't just a Forge world, it's the Forge world. It's the industrial heart of the Imperium, the core from which the Mechanicum's strength radiates. And for a place that's supposed to be unshakable, there's an awful lot of tension bubbling under the surface. Political instability, religious schisms, whispers of heresy, and let's not forget the ancient, half-buried machinery that no one fully understands. Mars may appear powerful, but it's fragile in ways the Imperium desperately tries to ignore. That's where the Crypt-Suns come in, at least if the more compelling fan theories are to be believed. They're not just secret keepers or techno-mystics worshipping in silence. Some people think the Crypt-Suns are actually part of Mars's nervous system, like a forgotten autoimmune response buried so deep in the planet's history that it only activates when things start to break down. Not political systems, not supply lines, but Mars itself, its reactors, its vaults, its core structure, its soul. According to one theory, these figures have been maintaining technology so ancient and so vital that without them, the entire Martian infrastructure would collapse. Think about that for a second. All those towering manufactoria, the arcane generators, the plasma conduits stretching for miles underground. They all rely on systems that were never meant to run for tens of thousands of years. The mechanicum keeps things going through ritual and routine, but what if something breaks that they can't fix? What if there's a catastrophic systems failure that no current Magos has the knowledge to reverse? That's when the Crypt-Suns would act, not publicly, not with fanfare, but like hidden blood cells responding to an infection, sealing breaches before they spread, rewriting code that no living data engineer even understands, restarting dormant power arrays that haven't been touched since the Dark Age. Some fans even speculate that the reason Mars hasn't had a complete collapse in the wake of events like the Horus Heresy or the Cicatrix Maledictum is because these unseen engineers stepped in at the last moment, did what needed to be done, and disappeared before anyone could document it. And it's not just about systems and tech. Some theorists believe that the Crypt-Suns may be Mars's last line of defense in a more traditional sense. Think of it this way. If you had access to a functioning forged star, even a partial one, you'd have a weapon unlike anything in the modern Imperium. You could power an entire fleet of Titans indefinitely. You could create experimental weapons that haven't been seen since the human race first climbed into the stars. And maybe, just maybe, you could produce defensive measures on a planetary scale. The kind of thing that could turn Mars into a fortress so impregnable it makes Cadia look like a picket fence. There's even this absolutely wild idea floating around in fan circles that the Crypt-Suns aren't just protecting Mars, they are Mars. Or at least, they've fused so deeply with its forgotten systems that they've become an extension of the planet itself. The old Martian AI cores, the lost planetary defense networks, the deep-sealed thinking engines buried beneath the Noctis Labyrinthus, maybe they're not inactive. Maybe they're still humming quietly, receiving signals, updating data, and the Crypt-Suns are the high priests of that intelligence. Not worshippers, but stewards. They don't ask the machine spirit for guidance, they interpret its will directly. And what happens if Mars is ever truly threatened? I don't mean a skirmish with a few heretics or a saboteur slipping through the defenses. I mean something massive, an awakening Necron tomb fleet, a Tyranid tendril that breaks through Segmentum Solar, or a Black Crusade with its sights set squarely on the red planet. In those moments, when the surface is in flames and the orbital platforms are falling, that's when the Crypt-Suns would reveal themselves. Not to beg for help, not to evacuate, but to activate protocols so ancient and so powerful that even the Fabricator General would be left in stunned silence. Maybe it's a planetary defense grid powered by the last forged star, hidden beneath Olympus Mons, capable of turning space itself into a burning cage. Maybe it's the sudden appearance of silenced Titans, walking war machines that haven't moved in 20 millennia, stepping out of shadow vaults and igniting with a blue-white glow that makes even Adeptus Astartes pause. Or maybe it's subtler, a sudden resurgence in power grid stability, an impossible recovery in core temperatures, data spires that were believed corrupted suddenly clearing themselves. The signs of a force that has always been watching, always been waiting, and never needed permission to act. Of course, all of this is unprovable. That's the beauty and the terror of the Crypt-Sun theory. If they exist, then we're not dealing with a standard Mechanicum sect. We're dealing with something old, something independent, and something with a very different idea of what loyalty looks like. Not loyalty to Mars's leadership, and maybe not even to the Emperor himself, but to Mars as a construct, to its preservation, its memory, and its potential. So, the next time someone talks about how vital Mars is to the Imperium, how every forge world traces its lineage back to the Red Planet, think about who might be keeping it all from falling apart. It might not be the High Magi. It might not be the Archmagi Veneratus or the Fabricator General. It might be a silent order, hiding in the deepest dark, safeguarding the spark of a sun that never went cold. And if the day ever comes when Mars must rise or fall, maybe it will be their call to make. If there's one constant truth about the Adeptus Mechanicus, it's this: they never stop searching. The cult Mechanicus isn't just a religion, it's a hunger, a relentless, ritualized obsession with knowledge, with unlocking the secrets of the past, even when those secrets are buried beneath layers of forbidden code and sealed vaults that haven't been opened in 20,000 years. And when it comes to the Martian forged stars, or the Crypt-Suns, as some call them, that hunger turns almost feral, because these aren't just relics. They're questions that burn at the core of Mechanicum doctrine. They represent a level of mastery over energy, matter, and machine that the modern Imperium can barely comprehend. And yet, for all their fervor, the Mechanicum hasn't been able to truly grasp them. That's where the struggle begins, not a war with bolters and plasma, but a quieter, more frustrating war against forgotten language, corrupted data, and technologies that refuse to be understood. Entire generations of tech priests have spent their lives trying to decode half-burned scrap code, interpret half-spoken binary canticles, or even just locate the right vault. Some of them never return. Some return changed, physically altered by their communion with ancient machines, or mentally shattered by what they've seen. There's a particularly chilling story that circulates among the lower-ranking adepts. A Magos once led a deep-core expedition beneath Noctis Labyrinthus. They went looking for what they believed was a dormant fusion core from the Dark Age. What they found instead was a chamber with no walls, no ceiling, and a single structure pulsing with artificial starlight. Most of the team was never heard from again. The few that returned refused to speak, and their cogitators were found melted from the inside. The only surviving log reads, "It stared back." Of course, no one knows if the story is true, but that's the kind of aura these things carry. Part machine, part myth, completely terrifying. But here's where it gets really complex. The Mechanicum wants to know the truth, but they're also terrified of what they might find. That's the paradox. Their belief system is built on the pursuit of knowledge, but it's also rigid, almost paranoid. There are limits to what they're allowed to understand, limits codified by sacred right and reinforced by fear of what happened during the Dark Age. When a tech priest begins to get too close to the real secrets of the forged stars, questions start getting asked, sometimes by the Inquisition, sometimes by the Fabricator General himself, sometimes by, well, no one you can see. Some factions of the Mechanicum want to destroy the forged stars entirely, should they be found, believing that they are the last remnants of a blasphemous age when humans played at being gods. Others want to harness them, to ignite a second dark age of technology under the red banner of Mars, with the Mechanicum, not Terra, as its capital. Still others believe the forged stars are the machine god incarnate, sleeping in stellar form, waiting for the faithful to reawaken them. These divisions aren't academic. They've led to assassinations, to secret wars fought in data crypts and sealed manufactoria. The search for these stars is as much a political struggle as it is a theological one, and what really drives it home is that no one's even sure what they're looking for. Some say the stars are still burning in the void, hidden by cloaking fields or buried inside artificial singularities. Others think the stars were compacted into devices no bigger than a person. Mobile suns locked in containment fields, perhaps even embedded inside revered relics without anyone realizing it. There's a theory that one of the forged stars was weaponized, used to power a prototype Titan so large it couldn't move, so it became a mountain instead, enshrined and forgotten, worshipped by a minor forge world as a spirit of the land. And this pursuit? It's not safe. Tech priests who get too close to the truth often vanish, not just because of political silencing, though that happens too, but because the ancient systems they're tampering with fight back. These aren't crude machines. They're built with logic that warps itself, architectures that rewrite memory, traps that don't kill the body, but erase the mind. There are entire data coffins locked away on Mars, filled with binary code that no one dares run because last time they tried, a Titan's cortex went berserk and killed 300 people before collapsing into inert slag. But the Mechanicum keeps searching anyway. They send their explorator fleets into dead zones, their Martian Lex mechanics into the archives, their crypto-magi into half-sane communion with corrupted fragments of STC. Why? Because they can't help themselves. Because to know the truth of the forged stars is to know something close to the divine. It's not just knowledge anymore, it's salvation, or damnation, or maybe both. One of the most compelling theories floating around is that the forged stars were never meant to be understood with human minds at all, that they were built with the help of something else. A Xeno's intelligence, a warp entity held in equilibrium, a non-sentient AI so vast and complex it became something like a god. Whatever it is, the current Mechanicum might simply not be evolved enough to interface with it anymore. They're trying to decode Shakespeare with a wrench and a prayer, and every time they get close, the system locks up, or worse, shows them something they wish they hadn't seen. So here they are, thousands of years later, still fumbling through the dark, still praying to machines they don't understand, still chasing the light of a sun that may never have gone out. The forged stars are out there, maybe burning, maybe watching. And the Mechanicum, for all their brilliance and all their faith, are still just scratching at the door, desperate to be let in, terrified of what they might find when it finally opens.